right, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome, Chad. Always good to see you, my friend. I do my regular welcome message. Where'd it go? Bleep. There we go. We are here to learn about Confluence macros, what they are, what they can do, and to just see some hands-on, here's how they can work. So please, if you've got questions about macros, definitely drop those in, and I'll drop a quick icebreaker question. Mic check is good. Thank you, Chad. Kwame, I hope I'm saying that right. Welcome to the session. Glad you're here. Chad, I know you're in here, so I think your yes would be more than one or two. You may hold the record for the most, actually. I don't keep track of these numbers, but you've definitely been in a lot, my friend. It's good to see you. Otherwise, a pretty good mix so far. I'll give folks just a couple minutes to jump on in, but we're going to get started soon. We're going to have a couple of slides talking about concepts with macros, like what are they, why do we care about them, and then we'll jump into hands-on exploration of a couple. I won't have time to get into every macro or every possible thing about them, but, excuse me, we will walk away with a very good basics of what they are, how we can find them, how we can use them, and the types of things they can do to help us out. Simply because there's just so many of them. I also realized the term several. Like growing up, I always thought a few was one or two and several was like 3 to 7. Then there's a lot. Welcome, Dom. Good to see you. All right, up to about 25 folks. I'll give folks just another moment, and then we will get started. LJ, welcome. I'll be in your neck of the woods, to use the expression. I'll be in your area in October for Atlassian's team conference over in Barcelona. Okay, well, we're gonna get started, folks. Again, we're gonna jump into some slides. First, way of introduction. Welcome, Rennie. For folks who don't know me, my name is Rob. I've been using Atlassian products like Confluence and Jira since about 2013, and I learned it all by doing. I never had any formal training. I was just, someone pointed at Confluence and said, that's the knowledge base, and they wandered off. And that means I had to learn everything hands-on and by painful experience. Since then, I've become a Atlassian certified practitioner, hold multiple certifications. I help do a lot of training, mostly to help ensure folks don't have the pain or don't experience the frustration and pain of learning by doing that I did. It can work, it can be interesting, but most of us just want to do our jobs. Rebecca, Liz, good to see you both. And of the macros, table of Confluence, wow, I need more coffee. Table of contents is my favorite. Now, YouTube is great because you can all see and hear me. I cannot see and hear you, though, so that makes it a little bit more challenging to really make these engaging sessions. I'll do my best to be engaging, but please also use the chat. It's right over there over my left shoulder. Many folks have already just said good morning or introduced themselves. Use that to put in your questions. You'll also see me add polls, like the one that I added about, have you been in sessions with me before? And I'll use that to put in more information over into the chat for you. But please jump on in and interact with each other. If you have an answer to a question that I haven't gotten to yet and you have an answer, please feel free to share it. Please think of it more as a communal space and less of me just talking to you directly. I am also doing Atlassian training and all this stuff and YouTube creation kind of full-time now, so I do need your support to keep doing this. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I do regular videos on Atlassian products. And then also like the stream. That's the easiest way. Just hit the thumbs up button. Barbara, happy Taco Tuesday. I don't know how Taco Tuesday began, but for some reason many people eat tacos on Tuesdays. It's a great day. So please hit that like button. if you haven't already. It makes it easier for other folks to find it. Hello, Holloway5. Good to meet you. But also, please share this. There are other people you know who will benefit from learning and getting a different perspective. I'll talk about other ways to support me as we go, but hitting the like button's the easiest one. Okay, a quick agenda. Again, we'll have some concepts, so we'll have some slides to give us orientation and talk about macros. And this is important because when you go to look up macros or go to find other things, these topics, these concepts, these terms will be very, very important. Debbie, no welcome. This will be recorded. Ghost, good to see you again. So it was Tequila Tuesday, Ghost. Also haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you again. So we'll talk about these concepts so you know what to go look up, or you know where to go find marketplace apps, or you know where to go find other things. Lance, good to see you. And then we'll dig into who can use them, because that can also be frustrating. Some folks might not be able to add them or adjust them. But then we'll jump into specific macros that I like using. And I'll share some examples. And again, just to give you ideas and a starting point. I don't have all the time to do this. I used to make these sessions shorter, but I've realized an hour is the bare minimum. So if you need more support, I do have a Discord server. I just put the link in the chat. You might have to use a personal email, depending on your company's policies. And we'll go back and forth between those slides, and we'll go hands-on. So I'll show you what it looks like to go find a new marketplace app that could add macros. I'll show you what it looks like to add a macro on a page and configure it, or remove them, or how to adjust them. So the first question is, what even is a macro? Welcome, Sarah. It is a extra function or feature that we can add to a Confluence page. So in the context of Confluence, a macro pretty much always refers to something we stick on a page. Let me just drop a quick poll. So this will be a 1 to 4. 1 being not very or not a lot, and a 3 being very or super comfortable. How comfortable are you with macros? They can do a wide variety of things. They can be very simple. For example, we'll take a look at the expand macro, which lets us open or close a part of a page. There's a macro that just sticks a colorful shape on the page for us. So they can be very simple, or they can be very complicated. They can let us share information between pages and build complex structures to mirror information across our Confluence instance. And they can kind of be everything in the middle. There's just a very large number of them, which can make them hard to approach. It can make it challenging to go use them because there are so many. So part of what we'll do here is talk about how they can differ, but also show you some that I use regularly that'll make it easier and hopefully more approachable so you can pick these up and just start using them, because they do add a lot of great functionality to pages that we don't have otherwise, and they can solve a lot of problems that we have using Confluence that we can't solve elsewhere. So macros come from either Atlassian. When you first turn on Confluence and don't do anything else, there'll be a list of, I honestly don't even know, 40 or 50 macros, some good number. And these are great. They're the out-of-the-box macros, I call them. And they do a lot of great basic functionality, but you can also get additional macros from the marketplace, they call it. And this is important to remember. The macros you see when you go into Confluence can differ based on the macros you see in another company. And that is because it's possible that there's a marketplace app that one group has, the other one doesn't. So I'm just going to put a link to the out-of-the-box macros. So the ones that I just linked come with Confluence Cloud. So if you use Confluence Cloud, that's what you have. Many of those also appear in Data Center if you're using Data Center. But keep in mind, when you move companies or sometimes teams, depending on how things are set up, you can have a different list of apps installed, which means you can have different macros. Now, for me, this was frustrating. I didn't know this was a thing, so I got very bent out of shape, annoyed that I didn't have certain macros after I changed jobs. And then someone finally explained to me, oh, hey, we just don't have that app, that marketplace app. And so far, most of us are not very familiar with macros, which I am glad you are all here, because that's what we're here to talk about. I've mentioned that macros appear on pages. That is mostly true. They appear on 3 different types of content in Confluence. So when we think of Confluence, we can think of our copy of it as a library. Within the library are spaces to organize information. Within those spaces, like the room of a library, there's content, like our books and our magazines and things. There are live docs, pages, and blogs that all support macros. So if you're using any of these three content types, you'll have access to macros. They don't currently exist in whiteboards or databases, or smart links or folders. So when you hear someone talking about a macro, you instantly know they're talking about a blog, a page, or a live doc. And because pages are the most common and most stereotypical content type, they're almost always talking about pages specifically. But it's a great tip that, you're talking about one of these three things. And then when you're editing a page, live doc, or blog, so going forward, I'll just say a page just to make it easier for me to say, you'll find them either in this plus menu at the top or in this / menu when you're writing. So as you're typing, you can just enter a / and that'll give you the list of macros, or you can grab your mouse and click this plus. I like to use the /. I'm very lazy. I don't want to have to move my hand to go grab my mouse. And I'm just kind of used to the habit of typing in the /. Ghost is already sharing some macros I like. Excerpt, we'll talk about that. And you like live docs. I'm curious, Ghost, if you could share some of the reasoning why you like live docs compared to pages, or like what use cases. This means we're going to teleport into Confluence. It also means I need a coffee break. If you haven't, please hit the like button. I got about 50 people and 10 likes, which is amazing. And I will also share 2 links if you're looking for other content, other things I do. The first is the QR code under my head. And that is this link. It will take you to my learning courses. These are paid, but if you need help, need any kind of support, shoot me a message. My email's at the bottom. It's more important that you can all learn, but those are some great learning opportunities. And next, if you want to become a channel member, which there are some in the channel right now, I think I saw Chad and Sarah. That's another great way to easily support the channel, and you'll get early access to videos and some other great perks. Wrong button. I spoiled a surprise with permissions. This is Confluence Cloud Premium. All the macros I show you in here should be available in every version of Cloud. And I believe many of them will be in Data Center. There might be some difference between Data Center and Cloud, just as a heads up there. And it does still look like the majority of folks in here are not familiar with macros, which is perfectly okay. I'm going to drop a new poll. This one's around marketplace apps. So the first thing I'll do is just quickly pop over to the marketplace, which is marketplace.atlassian.com. And this is where vendors create and sell or share apps or extensions. Think of this like the App Store for your phone. You get your phone and it's got a lot of great stuff, but you can come here and get more great stuff. And I'm showing you this. You can click on Apps for Products and go to Confluence, because this is where these apps come from. And many of the ones that you see will add macros. For example, this one called Aura adds things about formatting. This one here about draw.io helps you integrate draw.io. And there's just a lot of these. So as you're using Confluence, you can go here and take a look. As my channel member Chad is saying, I only have access to a select few. IT is stingy. I believe what he's referring to is not just anyone can install these marketplace apps. You have to be a system admin. So you might find some that look particularly useful or interesting that you want to use, and you might not be able to install them. So you might have to work with IT, and they might just say no. And so that can also be frustrating. You might go do some research, or you might have familiarity with an app or a macro you've used before, and you're simply not allowed to use it because of your IT policy, or you don't have the budget or something like that. So please keep that in mind, that some of these app macros come from marketplace apps, and some of those marketplace apps you may not have access to for various reasons. Ghost is putting security concerns in air quotes. That is a completely legitimate concern. I will point out Atlassian does a very good job. I'll pick on this one of making it clear, how and why you can trust these, and they share information around this. So if you do find a marketplace app that's particularly useful, there should be a lot of information in here around privacy and security that you can give or direct your team to help them understand and make an informed decision. But every environment is different, and every team is different on how they choose to handle these things. But keep in mind, you can go get more macros from the marketplace. And it looks like 500 for Confluence, which is pretty cool. Now, once you've got macros, or if you don't have any, again, there are 3 places we can insert them. And people are talking about page properties. Maybe I'll sneak that one in if I have a minute. I'm just going to go to a space. And again, a space is just a way to organize content. This is my own my space for Hean Tech. And if I go in here and just create a page, so I've got pages. It looks like I've got live docs, and I turned off blogs in this space, which is fine. But I'll just pop open pages. And you'll notice right away, even on the blank page, you'll see the term elements. I call them macros. Some people call them elements. I don't know why I default to macros. It's probably what I was first told. But when you see element, that is talking about macros. So I can just type in a / on my keyboard, and that's going to give me this list. And you'll notice that it's alphabetized, kind of, and that AI, artificial intelligence, or Atlassian intelligence is at the top. It's possible your instance has this turned off, or if you're on standard or free, you won't see this. But from here, I can just scroll down and see all the macros. Now, this instance, this copy of Confluence, doesn't have any extra marketplace apps. So this list that I'm just scrolling through is the default. And this is what I meant when I said there's a lot of these. Again, we'll get to maybe a half dozen if we're very lucky today. But I will encourage you, the next time you open Confluence, to just take a look at macros, or go check out that link that I shared. You can also find this exact same list by clicking on this insert elements at the top. That was a fun visual glitch. And this one even has a view more link I've got to click. And now I can search through and see a whole bunch of them. So the reminder here is take time to just examine the possible macros you have, and this will give you ideas and kind of expand your thinking in terms of what's going on. Can we disable or reduce the AI suggestions in Confluence? I don't believe so, Lance. Your org or site admin, I believe, can turn off AI entirely. But I think given AI's rise and how people are using it, we're going to see it more and more and more as we go. Debbie's comment refers to just some terminology within Atlassian products. Like, you'll hear me use the term product, which means Confluence or Jira. That term is changing. So these are now apps. Confluence is an app. Jira is an app. Automation is an app. The things from the marketplace are called marketplace apps, just to help things out. So that's how we find them, and that's how we can add more. Again, out of the box, you're going to get dozens, if not hundreds of these. And again, I'll call out some of my favorites, but it is on each of us to just come in here and understand what's in here, because that'll make it easier to support our team and make better content, because we'll have a better understanding of our toolkit. Excuse me. I clearly need more coffee as we teleport back into Confluence. A shout out to my coffee sponsors, Chad and Sarah, for making sure I have coffee. So now that we understand where they are, it's a question of who can use them. In the current permissions feature, it's anyone with the add permission on pages, smart links, databases, live pages, or blogs. So if you have a green checkbox in this column, that means you can use macros. Now, to be clear, these are the people who can add them to a page. If you can view a page, you can view macros that are being used, but you can't go and access them, change their configuration, or add or remove them from a page. So to add them, you need the add permission, and then just to see and interact with them, you need the view permission. I should have put another box around that. Yes, Sarah. Yay, coffee. Chad's talking about a Jira plugin or a Jira Marketplace app, which is awesome. Um, so this can be frustrating. Folks might get excited about using them, and depending on the space you're in Confluence, your permissions can change. So it's possible you can go add them in one space, but not another. If you're using the beta permissions, you need the create or edit to add them, and then just view to see them. So this is a new update to permissions, which I'm excited about. It uses role-based access control. Won't dig into that too much, but it allows you to more finely tune and control permissions. If you're using this setup, you just need to check the boxes for create or edit, depending on what you want to give someone. When they're creating, they can add them, but if they don't have edit after they publish, they won't be able to do anything or edit it again. And again, you do need the view permission to see them if they're already on a page. Now, we've spoken a lot about where to find them and how to use them. Now let's dig into what they can do. Oop, wrong way. And these are my loose groupings. These are not the official only place they go. And it looks like more than half of us use Marketplace apps. Okay. They really are a ghost. Let me drop in another question. I really wish I could pre-populate these. So just a question on how frequently you use macros. Formatting is one area of macros being used. You can format, the way you add columns to a Confluence page is with a macro. It's called the layout macro. And that lets you add up to 5 columns, which I didn't realize I would get excited about a column macro. But originally it only let you have 3 columns, and now you can have 5. And that was a big, whoa, amazing. And that's just a good thing to remember. Atlassian is constantly tweaking, adjusting, and modifying how their systems work, their cloud products. So you will go in from time to time and just find new stuff, which is great. Debbie wants another option between weekly and never. Monthly, maybe? I'm limited to 4, unfortunately. So Sarah's using a couple of the formatting and content macros, which we'll talk about actually both of these, Excerpt and panel. Although, Sarah, I'd love to hear more about how you use them, just because I'm always curious how folks get leverage out of the Excerpt macro, and I'll explain that more when I talk about it. But the formatting macros help us make the page more visually appealing, and they help us organize the content on it. It is very important how the content looks. Imagine you go to a page and it's just a big wall of text. That's going to make it hard to interact with. It's going to be hard to read. You'll get bored. You'll kind of get, oh, great, I have to do this. And so the formatting macros let us break up text. They let us organize the words on the page to make it easier for someone to approach. Next, we have integrations related macros. And these allow us to pull in information from other systems. Now, in this example, I'll show you examples from Jira, because that's what the integration I have access to. Jira is a ticketing system by Atlassian, the same company that makes Confluence. And so they're very tightly integrated by default. And so some of the macros we have in Confluence let us do things like pull in Jira tickets, create new ones, display lists of tickets, that kind of stuff. Next, there are content macros. And these are nice because they allow us to control our content. Sarah mentioned the Excerpt macro. This lets us take a small piece of information from one page and show it in other places in Confluence. And so this makes our lives much easier, because instead of typing in the same thing in 10 places and updating it 10 times, we can just update it in one place. And again, very useful for the admins, but also very helpful for the content consumers, because they'll get the information they need, where they need it, when they need it. And last, we have, I call them usability macros, things like searching other additional features that help make it easy. One of these could be the table of contents, my favorite macro that I'll show you in a bit. But you can have a macro that inserts a search bar on a page, and that search bar is limited to only looking on certain pages. So you can make it easier for people to navigate and find your content by using macros in ways you can't without them. Or macros will do things for you that would take a long time. For example, a table of contents, I could go through the page and paste in links and format them and add hyperlinks, and then I'd have to go change it every time the page changes. No worries, Sarah. If you're comfortable sharing too in the Discord, might be easier with a redacted screenshot or something. Is that totally original content, Rennie? Sorry, anytime I see an acronym, I like to make up what it is. I believe Rennie is referring to table of contents, and that's the shorthand way of putting it. I think I follow you, Sarah. Nice. So now I'll talk about just some examples of macros. Again, these are the ones that we'll definitely cover, and I'll talk about some more as time allows. The first is expand. And this is a very straightforward macro. It either shows what's in it or it hides what's in it. And so this gives you a little drop down, essentially, a little caret, an arrow, whatever you want to call this icon right here, that you can just push and that will open or close the box. Now, it can be useful. Sarah's just calling out an example right here. You might hide your table of contents in that. Now, there are some limitations. As Chad is saying, he likes to put anything in expand. There are some macros that won't go into an expand box. So there can be some content that you cannot stuff into an expand box. And this drives me crazy. Now, there might be marketplace apps that let you do this, but it's, at least last time I tried, an odd limitation where not everything will work within expand. And that might just be how macros work. But keep in mind, you might run into some limits. Excuse me as I yawn. But it is very useful, again, for giving people some control over the page, or by to allow you to hide some content unless someone truly needs it, or to hide that table of contents because you don't want someone having to stare at it the whole time. You can let them hide it and then open it up when they want to see it. So just additional ways that they can use it. You can also change the name. So I've called this particular one not expanded and this one expanded, but you can have any bit of text. You cannot, though, modify this text. It always appears this size, etc. This is a good question around system performance. In general, I have not seen much slow down Confluence Cloud. I think it was Chad tested out how many children pages can a page have, and he stopped after like 300 just to see what happens. I haven't seen any problems with multiple expands on a page. That said, I haven't tried to break it. Typically, when I'm using macros, depending on the page, I might have a dozen or two if I'm doing a lot of formatting. But I haven't tried to do, say, 100 expand macros just to see what happens. I also can't think of an instance realistically where I would have an excessive number of them. But it is an interesting question. But again, most of the time, Confluence Cloud is able to handle the load we put on it. For example, I've worked with a group that had over 14 terabytes of information in their Confluence Cloud, and it didn't seem like it was running slowly. And I'm glad I'm seeing the same thing. Sarah's got a good tip. You can't put expand in panels, so you can use a table. Which tables are also in the macro list, so that relates to what we're doing. This is the table of contents, and this is the one that I use on almost every page I create because it just makes this linked table of contents. So in this example, I'm seeing it. This would be hyperlinks. To click on it, I'd go see the background. Click on banner, I go down to the banner. Now it automatically does this for you. And what it's doing is it's reading the headers on the page and pulling those into the table of contents. So headers, when we make a page, are really important. They visually break things up with bigger font size, but they also act as an anchor, what they call an anchor link. An anchor link is just an invisible link on a page that you can then link to. So the table of contents is pulling all of those headers in and building the table of contents. And it's even indenting by default the lower level headers. So background is probably a header 1, resources is header 2, and it would keep indenting all the way down. You also have multiple formatting options in here. I'll show you some of these. The default is a vertical list. You can also have it go horizontal. You can skip heading levels, and you can even do things like use regex, regular expressions, to include or exclude specific headers. So you can tweak the table of contents. For example, if table of contents has a header, you might exclude that from the table of contents just because you don't need it. Chad's got a good point here. I see if we can force this when we take a look. But when you go to edit, the expands open. And so one thing to keep in mind with all macros, they will look different to the person viewing the page than if you go edit. Debbie, thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a great day. Catch the recording, say hi in Discord. Have a good Tuesday. So when you go in and edit the page, it can be frustrating, especially how some macros are displayed in the editor. It can look very, very different. And this can be very, very surprising for new folks. So if your team member is frustrated or freaking out or complains a little, sit down and help walk them through what's going on. The status macro is another popular one. All it does is add, I call it a tab, I don't know what to call the shape, a rounded rectangle on your page that can have a name and then a color. Frequently used to indicate some kind of status, but it adds some visual pop and visual distinction to a page. It doesn't automatically change, so it's not like a workflow status in Jira. It's always just going to be the color you make it. Rodney, good to see you, my friend. In terms of the macros expanding when you edit, I kind of understand why. When you go in and edit, you want to see, the assumption is you should want to see everything so you can change it. I could easily see people complaining, hey, why are the expands closed? I forgot they were there. Because when that expand closes, it's one line across, and it can be very easy to miss. So this is status, and again, I typically use this. I just type in a status, and I'll copy and paste it in different spots. You also can't change the colors out of the box, so you're stuck with just these 6. There are other marketplace apps that have more robust status options, though. So just a heads up there, if you're able to get your hands on them, there's a lot more in the visual formatting area that you can get. Excerpt has come up a couple of times. And Excerpt allows us to designate an area of our page and then mirror that content somewhere else. On its own, it's essentially useless. And what we're seeing is the Excerpt macro in the editor. So here I've added an Excerpt, and I can see the box, and I've put text in it. Now, Excerpt, like Expand, supports most but not all macros, so you might not be able to cram everything in here, but it gets very useful when combined with another macro I'll talk about in a minute. You can have multiple excerpts on a page. This is maybe a year old, but the goal with an excerpt is to identify a part of the page you want to use somewhere else. I use it, imagine you have a how-to article, and at the top you have a quick 2-sentence description of what you're doing or what the steps are. You might want an excerpt around those 2 sentences so you can pull them in to other pages very quickly. Excerpt does require some thinking, though, at least for me, to figure out where do I put them and what information goes in them. So this is where it's a bit more about the architecture, our information architecture of our data. Julie, for me, it's one of the trickier ones too, just figuring out the best way to use it. Because it means this can be pulled into different spots. Where else can it be useful? Also, just a heads up, this macro can be frustrating to other editors, because if it's being used somewhere else, you can't edit it there. You have to edit it on the page it lives on. So in this example on company policies is where this lives. If it's being used somewhere else, you won't be able to edit it there. You have to come to company policies. Sarah's got a good call out. You don't necessarily have to give it a name. It might be hard to see on the screen, but there's a little red asterisk next to excerpt name. Not mandatory. However, I always name them just for sanity, just to be in good habit. Now, excerpt is useless by itself. There are other macros that will use excerpts though. The one I'll talk about here is insert excerpt. Everyone quickly say excerpt 5 times fast and let me know how that goes. It's a very challenging word to say. But this allows me to go grab an excerpt from another page and show it somewhere else. And this is very useful. Again, imagine you have information, how-to steps, an update, a policy guide, something you want to show up elsewhere. You can easily do that with an excerpt. And then with the insert excerpt. If you have multiple excerpts on a single page, you can then pick based on name. And this, Sarah, is why I always name them, just so I'm in the habit of always naming them. I would rather take the 3 seconds to slap a name on it, and I never have to worry about that. Why not, Chad? Excerpt. Excuse me. I can do better. Excerpt. Am I even saying it right anymore? Hang on, let me do a quick poll. All right. Now, the insert excerpt is also useless by itself. You have to have an excerpt for it to go grab. Oh, okay. On that note, we're going to go back in and look at some of these macros. I'll show you expand and status in those. I'll also try and show you a couple other ones. If there are specific macros you want to see, drop a link here or drop an idea in chat. I might not be able to get to it. What I'll do is I'll do follow-ups in my Discord channel. Join us there. You might need a personal account. Again, your work may block Discord. I will also try to get back in the habit of my Wheel of Macros series, where I spin a wheel and I talk about a macro, and I'm trying to find them right now. But I will continue to build that out. The goal will be to do a YouTube video on every macro, and here is a link to the Wheel of Macros. These are in-depth explorations of one macro at a time. So depending on the macro, it can take longer. And about 3/4 of you think I said excerpt properly right there. Thank you for the support. I'm just back on my page, and I'll zoom in, and I'll start with that expand macro. I'll be using just the keyboard shortcut, the /. And I think Rodney did call out the date macro. Now, some macros have a hotkey, and the one for date is a double /. But what we can see here, on some of these, like action items, has an open bracket, close bracket. Mention has an @ symbol. There's some others. Emoji has the colon. Table, shift, what is that? Shift, Alt, T. Date snippet, 3 backticks, single date, /. So these hotkeys let you just instantly insert whatever that macro is. So instead of having to type in, say, something for an action item, I can just do an open bracket, close bracket space, and that inserts the macro. Not a lot of macros have these, but some of the ones that do are very useful. Again, action item is one. @mention, technically a macro, uses the @ symbol. Date is also very popular, as is decision. That's open, greater than, less than, I guess, symbols. If you do a lot of code, the triple backtick can also be very useful. And that's the button to the left of the 1 key on my US keyboard. Do those shortcuts work in Data Center? I don't know offhand, Barbara. Rodney, do you happen to know offhand? And I'm saying that because I haven't used Data Center in a while. The thing to check, Barbara, is go in and look at the macros menu, either with the / or click on the plus, and you'll see them listed if there are any in this little grayish boxish thing. Yeah, they might be different. And that is something to remember. If you're using Data Center, the exact way the macros look and function can be different than Cloud. So to insert my expand macro, I'll just start typing in the word expand to find it, and then I'll just click on it. And you'll notice it just drops it in there. It gives it a title, give this expand a title. And then I can put kind of whatever I want in here. Let's see if I can put an element in. I'll add a table, and I'll make it, I guess, this big. column 1, column 2, B, C, D. All right. Now, when I'm editing, I can expand and collapse this. And again, all this macro does is condenses everything to the single line. Once the page has been, I have to give it a title. Macro example. I'll know what that means later, won't I? So now when it's published, people just see this drop down. Now, the use case for this, some folks have mentioned a table of contents. You don't want that the TOC in someone's face the whole time. So you could put it in an expand to let them expand it. I will put like a tip or trick under these. I have seen people build a Q&A this way. It's not my personal preference. I tend to use headers for that. But you could have each expand macro be a question, and then you get an answer. So that's one way. Again, anywhere I want to kind of hide content visually and allow someone to choose to access it would be when I use the expand macro. And again, it can support some, not all, other macros within it. So depending on the macro, you may or may not be able to cram it in there. Table is a macro, so that / that I did. That's not helping me. Can you go below? Fine. Here, let me just make this page a little bit longer. Table is a macro, so you can quickly insert a table from your keyboard just by hitting enter, and then you can use your arrow keys actually to fit how big you want it. Status macro is the next one. Actually, maybe I'll combine status macro with my table. I'll have this be item 1, I guess. I can use it to just, again, add that visual pop. Maybe I'll say this one is pending at item 2. I want to say is done. Now, like other content, like text, you can just copy macros and then paste them. So that if you're using something like the status macro, makes it very easy. I frequently use this as a lightweight tracking tool. I might do it for like following up on meeting notes or a very lightweight project tracker for tasks, that kind of thing, where I'm using the status macro to indicate what's the status of that particular item. We are stuck with just these colors and just the text. I can't make it uppercase or lowercase. I can't change the size of it. It's just that big. That's what it is. But that's one good use case for this. Sarah's pointing out, yes, the leap from DC data center to cloud can be traumatic to those of us who have to reformat everything. And I imagine, given the recent announcement that cloud will be going away in 2029, a lot of groups will be exploring ways of migrating successfully. Maybe, Rodney, we add some resources for that over in the Discord channel. But definitely drop into that Discord channel for continued support on your Atlassian journey. About 200 folks in there. And I need some coffee before we talk about more macros. And just a quick reminder, if you like this, please hit the like button. About 60 people, about 15 likes, which is amazing. Also, there are other ways you can support the channel and what I do. I really enjoy doing this. I want to keep doing this. So please consider ways to support me. Cloud is going away. Yeah, it's an amazing announcement, Justin. Atlassian is getting rid of cloud. Isn't that crazy? No, my friend. They're getting rid of data center. So data center will be rolling into, well, will be deprecated kind of like server. That announcement came out yesterday. I must have misspoke, Justin. I was joking the second time I said it. I maybe misspoke the first time. Data center is going away. Folks will be forced into cloud. That's what I meant to say. All right. And the other way, please take a look at my learning courses. I've got a number on Atlassian topics. Oh, if it were April 1st, I would have a better spiel. No, data center is going away. So that is our expand and our status macro. Now, Sarah's reading my mind. I've mentioned that some macros integrate with other systems. And I'll use Jira just because I have access to it and it's available out of the box. But there's a number of macros that relate to Jira specifically. You can insert work items. So if I can define, I think this is, oops. If you can define a search within Jira, you can find work items to pull in to Confluence. So very quickly, I can insert this list of work items directly into Confluence. And in this example, because it's Jira and it's made by Atlassian, these links all take me directly into Jira. And in some cases, they're actually integrated and I can edit the work item here, and that edit shows up on the work item itself. I really enjoy doing this. When I'm project managing groups, I use this a lot to pull in the work items that my team is talking about. It also is great for building resources for stakeholders because they may not want to go into Jira for any reason, no reason, who knows. So instead, I'll pull it into a Confluence page to make it more accessible to them. So they can just open up the Confluence page they're used to going to, and they see all the great information that just exists there. There are other Jira macros, though. Let me get rid of this one real quick. Bleep. You can create a Jira work item directly from Confluence. So I use this one quite a bit. Again, if I'm in a meeting and I have to make a new work item for the team to do something, I can quickly do that. And what I'll do, is this the one? This is the one. I believe this link, yes, this link is the announcement about Data Center, just if folks have questions. So Sarah, Chad, the other folks who were freaking out that I misspoke earlier, that gives you timelines, more information on Data Center shifting to cloud. But those Jira macros, I use them quite a bit, and I show my team about them. So when they are working in Confluence, they can easily make Jira work items. Now keep in mind, macros that you use will respect permissions. So if I use that Jira macro and Chad doesn't have access to some of the work items, he will not see them. So Atlassian is good about respecting the viewer's permissions. If he's looking over my shoulder, though, at my screen, he would see it. The Excerpt macro. So again, this little guy is useless by itself. You'll notice it looks similar to Expand. It's got a box and it says Excerpt. And I might include information. And I do have some options to edit this macro. Not all macros have an edit button. And those that do maybe only have a few things. But this is where I can give it a name. Information is a terrible name, but just something. It does say it's required, but it's not. You can just have a blank name. This is necessary if you have multiple excerpts on a single page, so you can differentiate which one is which. So always give it a name, just so you know what it is. You can also hide the excerpt on the page itself. So if I go update this, that excerpt box just doesn't appear. I use this to hide like metadata about things. So I might stuff a page properties macro in here. Oh wow, there's so much stuff now cluttering up the page. Come back. Oh, content properties, excuse me. Oh no, does it fall out? Oh, you can't put in excerpt anymore. What the heck? Well, I don't do that anymore. I lied. But I will put information in here that I want to show somewhere else, a brief high level on what the page is doing, those kind of things. And again, that excerpt is not useless by itself, but it doesn't do much. What I really need is another page to pull it in somehow. Excerpt include, there we go. And then I'll just go excerpt again. Insert excerpt. They changed the name on me. Very nice of them. I need to tell it which page to look at. So I have to point it at, in this case, macro example, and then it will list any excerpts it finds. And then when I click preview, I'll see what gets pulled in. By default, it's got this border around it, this frame, and the name of the page where it found it. I typically remove that. And so then when I insert it, that information appears, but I can't edit the information. I can edit the macro and change where it's pointing. So editors may find this annoying because this isn't something they can change. They have to open up the settings and go to the source page to update it. Now, when this is published, what we're going to see is it just looks like that information is right on the page. So this is very useful anytime you have information you want to show up in multiple spots, or the same information you feel like you have to type in multiple times. It's similar in my mind to like software development where you have modules that are reusable. Same idea. This is my modular information that I want to show up in multiple different places. And there are different macros that also help support this, or also use excerpts. Was it content by label, I think? Or did they rename it? Oh, that's going to drive me nuts. They've changed these names slightly. But there are other macros that interact and work with excerpts. So anywhere you find yourself using them multiple times, you can add them in. We have a 1.1, 1.2, and use an excerpt at each additional 0.1. Interesting. I'd love to hear more about that, Sarah, or if you have screenshots that you can safely share in Discord. Andrea's asking if I change where the excerpt actually lives. Yes, it will update everywhere it's being used. I'll just add another information. And this is the beauty of the excerpt. Once the source changes, everywhere it's being pulled in, once it refreshes, it will just change. So it's very powerful, but we also just have to be aware that we're changing it in multiple spots. Tushar, yes, templates can be used if we're using an entire structure, and templates can include things like an excerpt or include excerpt, so you can help guide your team as well. No worries, Sarah. Or if you can describe it, I can try and build it out in a demo box so it's safe to share. Weekly reporting pages, very useful, very common. All right, folks, I need to jump off a little bit early today, so I need to wrap up, unfortunately. I do a quick poll, though. Should I do another live macros session? Asking because I never feel like I have enough time. So curious if there's interest in doing another hour or longer dive into macros. Just some tips and best practices as we're wrapping up. Review your macros. Take time to go in and take a look at them, just to become familiar with what exists. Also, understand which ones come from marketplace apps, just so you know you can go get help from the vendor, or if you change companies, get practice. So make sure you're using them and understanding how they work. This is very important. We should know how to use our toolkit, so make sure you're making time to figure out what's going on, and then talk to other people and share them, just so other people know as well. But also explore Confluence. If you're using it at your company, go look at other pages and try and figure out how did someone build it. Be an archaeologist. This will help you understand how you can use it and create things better. And it's kind of like any system. We want to keep engaging and getting hands-on. Also check out Atlassian Community, community.atlassian.com. I'll put that link in here. And if you like this, please hit that like button. Easiest way to support the channel. You might also become a channel member. You get early access to videos and some other things. And please check out my online learning courses. A number of great options in here, both for certifications and not in certifications. Whew. And it looks like 100% of you think I should do another live macros session. So I will see what I can put together in terms of that, and I'll focus more on practical hands-on, maybe make it like a 201. Discord link, I assume, Sarah, that's what you want, is right there. And Liz is pointing out you can actually build your own macros if you are a programmer and have access to Forge, which is the development tool for Atlassian. All right, folks, time for me to jump off. I do want to say thank y'all. Really appreciate you being here and learning about macros with me. I think they are one of the most useful parts of Confluence, especially pages. because they allow us to expand on the functionality and do more things. Rennie, I do have an admin-specific course for Confluence. It covers the ACP 220 Confluence admin. And then I have an everything non-admins need to know about Confluence course. So there's 2 options in there for you, my friend. Do want to thank you all for learning with me. I'll put together a 201 version of this, but hope you all have a great Tuesday wherever you are. Please remember to hit the like button. Easiest way to support me, about 45 folks and about 18 likes. So just hit like before you leave. Thank you all again. Have a